do the carpet too?
No, they were going to do the carpet, but they those type of carpet cleaners, they leak too much water, and while at first it looks good, the next day or two it starts popping up spots all over the place.
Right.
It almost makes it worse.
Tomorrow night's study. If I could maybe get out of here a little bit early, otherwise we'll be running real late to go back.
Oh yeah. Yeah, pick up Brennan.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I understand.
How you doing, brother?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
I'm good. This new boss I got really good influence on me because he's like a really get it done kind of person. So it's just now I'm thinking like all this stuff. When you get this done, when you get this done, not just this work.
Yeah.
Just in life.
That's good.
I like being around people like that because when I start acting that way, I pick up on it, I emulate it. So.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's good to have priorities and just focus on one thing and get it done. Next thing.
I might need a cord.
Get it done.
Get her done. Probably gonna want to update again because I don't use this computer enough to. I use it about once or twice a week, so when I use it, it's like update. Because Windows updates about every 3 days, it seems like.
Yeah.
That's one thing I like about Apple, but I don't think I ever.
Yeah.
Start.
You don't know how to do it?
Where the rest of the children are. Yeah, well. No way. Looks different. Looks open. Still looks open. All the chairs out of the side, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't realize how much chairs we have until you have all
No
of them.
kidding.
We still have some more in the basement. We still have more in the basement.
Really? More of these or?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, at least 10, I think. They're stacked. A lot of the bottoms broken.
So, did more of the metal come off at all?
No, they just, I think,
Okay.
Wow, it didn't update. That's awesome.
did
Didn't update. But I don't have any battery.
Oh yeah, they do.
Are you gonna need the extension cord?
let me just check my bag. I probably will. I'm only at 30%.
I'll have to move over. To the
Yeah,
other
you
table.
can walk over and we can share.
Because as soon as you give it to me, it's like,
I'm all for sharing.
you want coffee?
No, I was gonna ask. You do a copy.
Sure. Yeah, I'm way down. 2 or 3.
Oh.
What?
He won.
No creepy.
What?
So how much are you gonna rent me
Dad.
your house for?
Go along
What's that?
with me.
How many,
How much are you gonna rent me your house for?
2 or 3?
No.
Yeah, Wells convinced you to move to Texas.
One. I was just telling them that the morale got so bad. Morale got so bad in our country. If I were ever to move anywhere, it'd probably be to Texas, if anything.
Well, then this is gonna be hanging over here.
Because they're pretty conservative, anti-abortion,
Oh, yeah, I agree.
so on and so forth.
What did he do that for?
They're pretty much a Christian.
Well, I'll tell you.
And there's a reason why they call them the Lone Star State is because at one point they were in their own country.
Right.
And they keep on talking about
Separate from the U.S.
if things keep
I
on.
wouldn't blame them.
But if anything, I wouldn't move out of the country. I'd move to Texas.
Yeah, see, if something like that happened, where
Just like-
I started seeing Texas was going to separate,
Yeah.
I just moved to Texas and find living.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking about if things got bad, where would you move?
Yeah.
And so that's what he's talking about.
Oh, I see.
He's been talking about all day. Well, yeah, I agree. Just
He's been telling me all of his elaborate
You know what,
plans.
when all things
I
are
just-
said and done, there's more said.
You always want to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
I think you just want something exciting.
You know.
Like.
I thought it was like a phone.
Trust me, I don't need any more excitement in life.
No, I mean him.
Yeah, oh yeah.
If you just want more excitement.
Yeah.
Wow. Seeing everybody with their devices.
But if it did, it'd be we would make it a mission to Texas.
And then you would have to.
No, I did not.
They're a few mid-sized towns.
Oh, I love these lyrics.
No Messianic congregations that do. Okay, so we are in Bereshit still.
Yeah.
Chapter 27,
Good book.
verse 30, so the book of Genesis.
Right?
Parashat Tolot.
Which one? Genesis?
Ze Sefer Tov.
Oh, good.
Good.
It's a good book.
I didn't say it was better than the other ones. It was better.
It's a good one.
It's like, I really love the Torah.
These to get turned on. See, is that yours on?
Genesis. 30? 27? I don't know.
It just looked like this one wasn't on. All right, it's on now. What chapter? We are in for our TeNaKh Talk study tonight for Bereshit, Genesis chapter 27, verse 30. Sefer Bereshit, Perek 27, Pasuk 30.
Chapter 27, verse 30.
And we will finish
28.
chapter
Oh, wait.
27 and go to 28,
Verse 9. Yeah.
Ooh.
So we are getting into new territory
Let us
today.
stand before the Lord.
Yes. We ready to bless? We got a kids cup that needs one. We need any extra kids cups down there? Because we do have a Kaddish. All right.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pori hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher keshanu mitzvotav tzedekanu, la'asot divrei Torah.
Amen. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who created the fruit of the vine. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments, and has commanded us to be occupied with the words of the Torah. We thank you, Father, for this time to study your holy Torah. We pray that you hide it in our hearts. We just want to draw close to you, Father, through your word. Pray that you would show us wondrous things from your Torah as we read it. And Father, we just thank you for this time and this place and for brothers and sisters to study with. It's in Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. Yeshua.
Hallelujah.
All right. So again, we are in Parashat Toldot, Genesis chapter 27, in verse 30, all the way to chapter 28, verse 9. Shalom, hayaladim shali, boim. Come and sit. I'll kick us off here for the first 5 verses. And it happened when Yitzchak had made an end of the blessing, had finished his blessing to Yaakov, when Yaakov had barely left his father's presence, Esav, his brother, came in from his hunting. He too had prepared a tasty meal and brought it to his father. And now he said to his father, "Let my father get up and eat from his son's game, so that you may give me your blessing." Yitzchak, his father, said to him, "Who are you?" And he answered, "I am your son, your firstborn Esav." Yitzchak began trembling uncontrollably and said, "But who was it that took game and brought it to me? I ate it and all just before you came, and I gave my blessing to him. That's the truth, and the blessing must stand." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst into loud, bitter sobbing. "Father, bless me too," he begged.
He replied, "Your brother came deceitfully and took away your blessing." Esau said, "His name, Yaakov," he supplants, really suits him because he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and here, now he has taken away my blessing. Then he asked, "Haven't you saved the blessing for me?" Yitzchak answered, "Esau, look, I have made him your lord. I have given him all his kinsmen and servants, and I have given him grain and wine to sustain him. What else is there that I can do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Have you only one blessing, my father?" "Father, bless me too," Esau wept aloud. And Yitzchak, his father, answered, "Here, your home will be of the richness of the earth and the dew of heaven from above. You will live by your sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you break loose, you will shake his yoke off your neck."
Esau hated his brother because of the blessing his father had given him. Esau said to himself, "The time for mourning my father will soon come, and then I will kill my brother Yaakov." But the words of Esau, her older son, were told to her. She sent for Yaakov, her younger son, and said to him, "Here, your brother Esau is comforting himself over you by planning to kill you. Therefore, my son, listen to me. Get up and escape to Laban, my brother in Haran. Stay with him a little while until your brother's anger subsides. Your brother's anger will turn away from you, and he will forget what you did to him. Then I'll send and bring you back from there. Why should I lose both of you on the same day?"
Rivka said to Esau, "I'm sick to death of Hittite women. If Yaakov marries one of Hittite women, like those who live here, my life won't be worth living."
Yeah, we're reading only to verse 9, so just read it to verse 4.
So Esau called Yaakov, and after blessing him, charged him, "You are not to choose a wife from the Hittite women. Go now to the home of Bethuel, your mother's father, and choose a wife there from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May El Shaddai bless you, make you fruitful, and increase your descendants until they become a whole assembly of peoples."
"I may give you the blessing which he gave Abraham, you and your descendants with you, so that you possess the land you traveled through, the land God gave to Abraham." So Yitzchak sent Yaakov away, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rivka, Yaakov's and Esau's mother. Now Esau saw Yitzchak had blessed Yaakov and sent him away to Padan Aram to choose a wife from there, and that he blessed him. As he blessed him, he charged him, "You are not to choose Canaanite woman as your wife."
Read the last 3 verses.
And that Yaakov had listened to his father and mother and gone to Padan Aram. Esau also saw that the Canaanite woman did not please Yitzchak his father. So Esau went to Ishmael and took, in addition to the wives he already had, Halakhat and the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaot, to be his wife.
All right, back to chapter 27, verse 30. Thoughts or questions or insights into this portion of Toldot?
Pretty starch reaction from Esau about the supplanting of his birthright. He said he was, when the time of mourning was over, he was going to kill Yaakov. If he really wanted that to go through, he probably shouldn't have said anything. But, I understand he was very emotional. He just lost basically his entire wealth.
Yeah.
But he should have known that coming because one, his younger brother's name means supplanted. And when he was out hunting that one time, he basically sold his birthright to him.
Well,
So he kind of had it coming.
well, he already lost it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You would think that, I mean, things happen in your family, you know, when before you're even born. You would think that it's told over and over and over again. So guess what? You're going to serve the younger one.
Right.
You would think that that would be something that would be hanging over his head for the rest of his life. He would have known that. I don't think that was kept a secret, you know, amongst him and his father. Rivka had to have told, you know, Yitzchak what was going on. So for him not to know that is a little puzzling too.
Yeah.
So I think he knew it, and I think he knew
Could
it.
be, yeah.
I think one thing that's kind of a little, well, the whole thing about him being the supplanter, and says you supplanted me these 2 times now. It's like, well, yeah, that's what his name is, supplanter, and heel grabber, and he did that once before he was born. And then he did it again when you ate the pot of stew, and now he's doing it the 3rd time. So it's really like 3 times you could say he was a heel grabber instead of a supplanter.
Yeah.
We have to be careful. A lot of times I've actually heard some replacement theology based on this. Some Christians will say that Yitzchak is like the church and Esau is like the Jews. And the church supplanted Esau's. I've actually heard that
Really?
before, yeah. That's actually a teaching.
It's pretty bad.
And that's really blatant.
Not only because of the replacement theology, obviously, but it doesn't match up at all.
Oh, no. It's,
Yaakov represents Israel
right.
all throughout the whole Bible,
Right.
like hundreds
But
of times.
they try and say that Yitzchak is the new Israel and Esau is the old Israel.
Esau has never been Israel.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
that's one of the doctrines that's out there.
I've never heard that
You
one.
kind of have to watch
Yeah.
out for it because that's how some people teach.
Well,
It's just
yeah.
not true.
Well, people can take all kinds of
Well, and
stuff.
then they try and say,
They
you know,
make up-
later on, of course, we see Esau and Yaakov make up, you know, and so they teach them, well, that's Israel and the church coming back
Did you
together.
read ahead?
So
Well,
it's,
but
yeah.
but if
I've heard that whole
if you
teaching.
actually have read this whole TeNaKh,
I didn't.
Esau, it's really, really bad.
I know.
And-
I never bought into it. I'm
And
just
God
telling you that
basically
it's
says He's
teaching.
going to destroy him and all of his descendants.
Yeah.
And it's not good stuff. So Esau, while there might have been a shaky piece, and it kind of was because they had to separate, you know, shortly after, it really was a shaky piece because their descendants, you know, were at each other's necks from that point on, pretty much. History.
There's always this time sequence that people are trying to maybe put a handle on when they think of, well, let's see, Rivka just told Yaakov to go get some animals from the herd or the pen where they keep them, right?
Right. Yeah.
So it's not a game animal. However,
Right.
she prepares it like he likes it, so
Right.
he knows that it might be from, you know, Esau, right?
Right.
Well, you would think, well, why didn't you just tell him to do it? Because he lives in the tents, right? He's not a hunter, but Esau not only has the skill to hunt, kill, clean the animal, bring it back, prepare it the way his dad likes it, the game style, and then brings it to him almost a few, what? Yaakov walks out the door, in walks Esau. That's the
Yeah,
way it
it's a little
sounds.
bit
Like
too
before he
early,
can
yeah.
even finish
You're
the
already
blessing.
back? Yeah.
It's like, what?
He was wiping his beard off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he comes in, and it's like, you must have really been fast.
So my question is, why wouldn't he kill Yaakov or Yitzchak right away? As soon as he found out.
Because he was like, it's his brother. He doesn't want to do it alone.
Well,
I don't understand that. I know he's anticipating the warning and all that kind of stuff, but perhaps by doing that, his father would cast him out and give the blessing to somebody else in the family.
yeah. There's already enough, you know, problems that he experienced, and with Yaakov leaving, that to Esau was probably a good thing, because you know he's leaving all the assets behind,
Yeah.
and so he's thinking, okay, let's see him come back because he's not going to get my birthright. So, you know, for that to, he probably was just consoling him. So like it says, the text says, he was consoling himself, you know, with that. And so he didn't want to make matters worse with his father, you know. So that would probably, in his mind, I'm trying to think from the mind of this carnal individual, is that'd be like the nail in the coffin for him in regards to his father. He wanted to be as much as possible on his father's good side.
That's true.
You know, he didn't want to kill his son before things got, you know.
Especially the one that carries the blood.
Yeah. But yeah, it's but we see his character here, I think, not only throughout our previous parashas, but here now. You know, when things don't go his way, it results in this hate, and we know that Yeshua tells us that, you know, the origin of murder is hate in one's heart, and so we kind of see this hate, you know, boil up in Esau, and it results in these murderous threats, you know, which he doesn't, you know, end up carrying out. But it, you know, it just kind of shows what's in his heart, and then, you know, his immoral nature. You know, amongst other things, and just in general, the scriptures recognize Esau with this immoral nature. This is just part of, I think, what we see. Ivrim, in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 16, it talks about Esau. It's talking about, you know, verse 15 before that, not that people wouldn't miss out on God's grace, wouldn't miss that, and not to have a root of bitterness springing up. And then verse 16 it says, and that no one is sexually immoral. And then it goes on to say, or, you don't want to do that, or you don't want to be godless like Esau. And, you know, so he's in general known for just having this godless type of, you know, personality, his carnal, worldly view of things. And it mentions our parasha, where in exchange for a single meal he gave up his rights as his firstborn. And then in contrast, we see, I'm trying to find where that is, Yitzchak, as you mentioned, it says, Michael, that he dwelt in tents. He was where is that?
That was when they were going to be born. So it's when they...
Was that in verse chapter 26, maybe? Let's see. Where is that? Let's see. Computers. Here, it also mentions in some versions that he was a quiet man. That's kind of what I wanted to speak to. Let's see here. It's in chapter 25. So, just 2 chapters back there. So it's in chapter 25, verse 27. You know, verse 26 is where we see Yaakov gets the name, and really it's referring to the catching by the heel, which can be translated as he supplants. But the context is that, you know, he was literally catching him, Esau, by the heel. And so verse 27, after that, it says, the boys grew, and Esau became a skillful hunter and an outdoorman, while Yaakov was a quiet man who stayed in the tents. And it's been noted by others that quiet man, or someone maybe say like a peaceful man, some versions might say something like that. It's maybe not the best translation. The Hebrew there is ish, he's an ish tam. And tam, in the Hebrew word, it means perfect, or complete, or maybe like wholesome. But idiomatically it also means pious, or like faithful, like a faithful one, godly faithfulness. And so it's quite likely that was his description. You could say that he was a perfect, or a wholesome man, but I think that the context is there is that he was a pious individual. He stayed in the tents, more often. Of course, rabbinic tradition has it that he was a man of study, and so he was spending his time in yeshiva, sitting down and studying and things of that nature in the tents. While Esau couldn't care about that. He couldn't care about studying the Word of God. He was just out doing his own thing. This is what the rabbis teach. And they might have a kind of a good point there, I think, with some of the Hebrew in the context. I don't think he just stayed in a dark little corner doing nothing in the tent. I think he was actually doing something. And being the one that would carry on the covenant, I think that he was learning the things of God. So that's the contrast. That's what I wanted to point out, the contrast to Esau's character, where he doesn't seem to have those ambitions. He wants to go out and marry the ungodly, pagan women around them, and then when things don't go his way, he wants to kill his brother.
Well, in the end, he did marry his cousin, or whatever you want to call it, from Abraham's side of the family.
Talking about Yaakov?
No, talking about Esau.
Esau, he was, going after the Hittite women, and then he saw that didn't please his father, and so what he ended up doing is actually marrying.
I think, I'm not sure, but it says he saw that his father didn't like the Canaanite women.
Right.
That was verse 8.
Right.
So then it says in verse 9 that he took, in addition to the wives he already had,
Right.
Machalat, which was Ishmael's.
So Ishmael.
Right. So
Not from Yaakov's side of the family.
No.
From
But
Ishmael.
it is still Abraham's son. So.
Right. So, but it wasn't from the daughters that Abraham and Yitzhak wanted him to take it from. It was from Ishmael, which was.
Yeah.
And so we see from both of those things, not only from the nature of, we see the prophecy here too. We not only see how he acts, we not only see how the other scriptures describe him, but the prophets. You do a little bit of reading on Esau, and by the way, some of the descendants of Esau were also known as Edomites, because when that deal between Yaakov and Esau took place, at that point, at the very point, it says his name was also called Edom, because he wanted to eat that red stuff, and Edom means red.
Right.
And so he's called Edom. So the Edomites and Esau throughout the TeNaKh are just really, God comes down on them pretty hard. They have very heavy consequences spoken of, and they pretty much would be destroyed in the end, according to various different prophets. So you have that going for Esau, and then you have the prophecy in this parsha that Yitzchak gives about Esau. And what does he say?
Oh, in verse 1 you mean, or?
Of chapter 27.
Oh.
In verse 40, he says, he prophesies of Esau. This is the type of person he's going to be. He says, you will live by your sword.
Oh, they're gonna be wild, man.
He says, you'll live by your sword, and you will serve your brother. So he confirms he's going to serve his brother, but of course the prophecy also includes the rebellion of that. When you break loose, although the will of God is that you would serve your brother, when you break loose, you will shake his yoke off your neck. So there's going to be that conflict, that ongoing conflict between them and between their descendants. And so then you take that along with, he intermarries with Ishmael, which is another person of conflict. And you see the prophecy about Ishmael, the type of man that he would be. Remember what the scripture said about him?
About Ishmael, that he's a wild donkey
Exactly.
of a man.
That he would be that he would be a wild donkey of a man, and that's in Genesis chapter 16, verse 12. He'll be a wild donkey of a man, it says, with his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, lifting his life at odds with all his kinsmen. So you get quite the explosive combination of this intermarriage with Esau, with his type of personality, and with Ishmael. And from this union, we get the 12 princes of Islam, and we have the descendants of those, the bulk of what makes up followers of Islam today.
We heard that about 10 chapters back.
Exactly. And so the Esau is Edom is also very much part of Islam today. And if you read the prophecies about Islam, or about Edom, there's several end-time prophecies regarding Edom and Esau that have not been fulfilled. It's talking about things that are happening in the land of Israel right now, and their fate when God comes to judge them. So I mean, these things are Parsha points to stuff that is we're seeing still unfolding to this day, and that will continue to unfold. This Shabbat we'll talk about a little more detail. We'll actually go into some of that and all the different prophecies and talk about the modern day threat of Islam and how that's all working with Satan's plan.
I have a question. It's obvious that, Esau missed out on the blessing that he wanted. And so he's like, Father, did you only have one blessing? Don't you have one for me? And he's like asking him for this blessing. And so he's like, okay, well, let's see here. He says in 39, his father answered him, here, your home will be of the richness of the earth. And I've read other versions that say it'll be away from the richest of the earth. So it's like it could be either one. And so, but either way, and of the dew from heaven above. So either he is going to dwell with it or he's not going to dwell with it.
Yeah.
But then he says you're going to live by the sword. But after he says that to him, and this yoke, and you're going to break loose, it says Esau hated his brother because of the blessing his father had given him. Now, is it the blessing he just gave him, or was it the blessing that he gave Yaakov? It sounds like it's the one he just got. So now he hates his brother even more that his father gave him a blessing. But to him, he didn't see it as a blessing. Although when you think about the kind of guy he is, that's the kind of guy he is. He lives in the woods, and the dew from heaven is what he relies on. He's not a tent dweller. So it must be the fact that his father gave him the blessing, which was the land and the servants and the cattle and everything else.
Yeah, I think that the lack of what was lacking in the blessing that Yitzchak gave to Esau, I think, is what he really resented.
So do we know at this point, and we may have conjectured this at one time, or maybe we know for sure, but how much time did it take for Yitzchak to die, and then for his mourning at this point? Because it obviously didn't happen that fast.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And as we see, Rivka's like, hey, look, you need to go visit my brother, Lavan. And then she makes it known that the reason why she wants him to go there is twofold. One, because I don't want you to die, because it looks like your brother wants to kill you.
Right.
But really, I'm going to use this other reason that I don't want you to marry the Hittite women.
Mm-hmm.
And not that you're leaning that way, but hey, why not use that as a good excuse to send you off? And it's not like he packs his bag and runs away.
Right.
He sits there, and his father gives him this, basically a command, what you're to do.
Right.
You're to go do what's been told. And Esau, he's probably sitting there listening to this too. So it's almost like they're a small family. It's not like they live miles apart. All this is going on in the
Could have
same.
been private though.
It could have been, but Esau heard the fact that Rivka didn't want Yaakov to marry Hittite women.
Mm-hmm.
And so he realized that, and he knew that he was going to go to Laban, and so he's sitting there. And if he really wanted to kill him, he could have done it at any time. And it almost comes back to, you know, the earlier scriptures back in Bereshit where sin is lurking at the door.
Right, yeah.
If you do what's right, you'll do well. But if you don't, you know, it's going to have its dominion over you, and you're going to lose out.
You really are right. When I was studying this week, that portion of Bereshit kept on coming back to my mind, dealing with, you know, Havel and Cain, because you really have that situation going on where you have one son that's basically getting the blessing of the father, the one that's not, and because of that, you know, the other one wants to kill the other brother, and that's a very similar situation. I think that you know, while you have these things happening, you know, in particular individuals in the humankind, I think that there is a parallel, probably in heaven, to some degree, with Hasatan. Not getting the position that he wants and someone else being favored. You know, he's getting cast down.
Yeah.
I mean, he's this ruling, magnificent angel. Could you imagine the position that he has? And he's getting knocked down, and no doubt someone's taking his place, you know, doing the things that he used to do, you know, for God. And you can only imagine that, you know, the Hasatan, as he's trying to, you know, express that, he's finding human counterparts, if not human puppets, to play out his anger about his situation, you know. And so, oh, look at this has happened down there. Let's just use this guy to be my representative on earth and to express my wrath. You can only imagine that he picks certain people, you know, to manipulate, you know, that have a similar circumstance that he has with the pride and with the hate and everything that's going on in his heart.
There's 3 people I can think of. Hitler, Stalin,
Yeah. Of course.
There's several more I can think of too.
Well, yeah, you have, for example, you have the leader of Islam, you know, that was at first wanted to be accepted, wasn't accepted, and then decided to, again, being a descendant of Esau, to go kill his brother Yaakov.
Yeah.
So I know that, well, I don't know for sure, but maybe it's been, you know, discussed among some of the sages or even some of people like we know, who knows.
Yeah.
When Yitzhak says, your brother took away your blessing, and he came deceitfully, right?
Yeah.
Now, all right, it's obvious that Yitzhak had a favorite, and it wasn't Yaakov, right? At least it looks that way. But he knows the prophecy, he knows the word spoken to Rivka, and he knows what's could be happening. So, is it possible even that he knew it was Yaakov that came in? And maybe, well,
The Yitzhak?
yeah, and that,
It's
and
possible.
here's the thing though, because
Some of the sages think so, some of them don't.
well, yeah, and I'm not saying that
Yeah.
this is the truth or this is
Yeah.
the only answer to it,
Right.
but he wanted a way to make sure that he didn't look like the bad guy in the
Right.
midst of, hey, Esau, you're my boy, you know.
Yeah.
I would have given it to you if your brother didn't come in and deceive me, you know, because he took advantage of me. I'm
Yeah.
blind, you know, I'm going blind or whatever. Because he says, well, if the voice is Yaakov, but this fake stuff that I'm feeling is,
Yeah.
it feels like, you know.
He may have had some, you know, as in the old age, he may have been, you know, thought to himself, is this, am I hearing right? Is this right?
And isn't
But I
that
don't
just
know.
tradition still? Is it written in the Torah anywhere that the firstborn gets the blessing, that the firstborn receives, well, even if it is, the tradition would be that they got a double portion. They didn't get the whole thing.
Right.
So
right.
Yitzhak still had plenty to give.
Yeah, it's a blessing
Esau.
of the firstborn.
So he gets, so if he had,
It's the
you know,
birthright.
100 sheep,
Yeah.
you know, he took whatever would have been and then doubled it, and then Esau would have got his share. He still got something.
Yeah.
I don't think, it
Well,
sounds
like
like
verse
he
30,
got nothing.
there's a few places where it talks about it, but for example, in our parsha, verse 36 speaks of the birthright, and that's specific to the firstborn. And then, of course, you have, you know, the conversation before that between Esau and Yaakov, where Yaakov asked Esau to sell him his birthright. So you have all this mention of that aspect of it. Yeah, whether Yitzchak knew for sure, you know, I don't know. When you read the text, it seems like, you know, he believes Yaakov when he lies to him, because we see that while he's questioning it at first, he says, verse 27, he seems to be convinced, where he says he smelled the clothes and blessed Yaakov with these words, "See, my son smells like a field which Hashem has blessed." So he seems to, you know, have, you know, hey, listen, Terry, it smells like him, so I just, you know, I'm old. I mean, I could be hearing, you know, the voice might be a little bit different. But he seems to believe it. And then when he finds out, for sure, he starts trembling uncontrollably, it says. I don't think he was just, you know, pretending. I think he was
Generally upset.
He was, yeah. I think the text, you know, kind of communicates he was genuine in that that shock of what just happened, but probably accepted God's will. You know, that happened.
Well, he did accept it.
Yeah.
It's obvious. Because
Yeah, he did. He obviously did.
He said, "My blessing stands."
Yeah, he did accept it. So, you know, he accepted it as God's will. Although I think that he was deceived. I don't think he really knew for sure. I think that at first he had a question and he was convinced, and then found out that he was duped. But we see that in verse 35, he does say that, you know, your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing. So I don't think that Yitzchak, especially in his old age and everything he had learned with Hashem, that he would engage in that type of deceit at that point of maturity in his walk with Hashem, especially right before he's going to die. I don't think he's going to be messing around. So, you know, I think that when it comes to this, it's Esau or Yaakov is ultimately the one that makes the decision. Of course, his mom, Rivka, is going to take a little bit of responsibility too, as she mentions earlier. But as I was talking about this last Shabbat, you know, obviously Yaakov didn't get away scot-free. He got quite disciplined. I mean, he was gone in this episode, just this one episode. Beside all the deception and the work he had to do, you know, he was gone from his home for over 20 years.
Well, you think about the problems that he had to go through.
Yeah.
Of the three patriarchs, you can honestly say that at least his departing words weren't the same as his father and grandfather's.
Yeah.
His were like, "I've had a hard life."
Yeah.
And it wasn't
he really
like,
did.
"You've lived a good long life." And it's like, "No, I've had a hard life." And
Yeah.
and it all started with this moment here. And
Yeah, he was deceived several times. You know, he's
kind of sad, you know, for him.
he loses his favorite son, you know, over deception, and just, gosh, he's just get taken through the ringer. So I think that he
paid the price.
Yeah, he did. I think there's a
More
lot.
than-
There's a
more
lot of
than anybody would want to pay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of maturity in that, though. You know, that can be had in righteousness as you learn those lessons and you go through that discipline. You know, according to the scriptures, you know, it tells us discipline is the way of life. When it comes to walking in life and the life that God wants, it often only happens through discipline like that.
But it's always good when we can learn from others'
Yeah.
examples and lessons that they've
Exactly.
been through.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I don't want to make that mistake.
That's
Or
exactly right.
even, let's just look at Esau here. Yeah, he weeps kind of bitterly, or he cries aloud, right? Verse 39, "Father, bless me too." He's weeping, right? Come on, is this you know, sorrow here? Is this sadness? Is this what's he really doing here? You know, because he he didn't want his birthright in the first place, because he willingly took it for, a bowl of stew.
Well, at that point, he actually thought he was going to die. So he was like, what's my
yeah.
birthright worth? I'm going to die. So
Yeah, and that's another subject which I could say it has a lot else behind it too. But,
yeah, exactly.
you know, he could have been dying, but either way, he at this point is the kind of person that, you know, Hashem already knows he is. You know, he doesn't have what I would call godly repentance.
Oh yeah.
He's not even sorry about anything. He just seems to be like, I get nothing.
He's just sad that he
missed it.
He has consequences that he can't just, you know.
And he obviously hasn't forgiven his brother for the first time that he supplanted him. You know, if that's the case.
Well, that wasn't even really a real supplanting. He's just, you know, that's just a false accusation from Esau.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because he did that fair and square. You know, yeah, Esau was in a weak moment. He does actually say, you know, what's good my birthright is? I'm about to die. You know, so, but at the same time, you know, that was the thing he said. You know, that was the agreed to. And at that point, as far as I'm concerned, God had delivered him into the hands of Yaakov, you know, in that sense, in a fair and square way, you know. Esau could have said, no way, I'm not going to do that. You know, I have more respect for my birthright, even if I'm going to die. Yeah. You know. But it seems to be that, you know, there's in that birthright is supposed to be treated with respect, not just for a bowl of red lentils.
In chapter 27, verse 45, where Rivka is talking, saying, your brother's anger will turn away from you, and he will forget what you did to him. Mm-hmm. And he does. We know that later. Then I'll send and bring you back. Well, it didn't happen real quick from there. And then she says this, why should I lose both of you on the same day? Now,
right.
She must be talking about Yitzchak and Yaakov. She can't be talking about Esau because she's already sensing she's about to lose her husband, Yitzchak here, right? And then she thinks, I'm going to lose my son as well because he wants to kill you. Yeah. So is that who the two are she's talking about? I'm pretty sure that's the answer, but
it could be. That's a really good question because as you mentioned, verse 45, your brother's anger will turn away from you, and he's still the subject. Brother and he is still the subject. Will forget what you did to him, so him is still the subject. Then I'll send and bring you back from there. Why should I lose both of you on the same day? So, well, it doesn't entirely make sense. It seems just from the context of the verse and who she's talking about immediately as the immediate subjects of...
Well, because then the next word out of her mouth is something right to Yitzchak.
Yeah.
So it's almost like he's there, and it's almost like he's part of the conversation, but he's not talking because he's blind. So maybe, you know, she's speaking her mind. She's very emotional, and I don't want to lose the both of you. I'm going to lose you, but I don't want to lose him too.
So yeah, I mean that's a possibility for sure. But it just seems like she's talking about Yitzchak, or talking about Yaakov and Esau. I mean, she continually goes back and forth, and those are the two that she's talking about. And then right off of that, she says, "Why should I lose both of you?" And so, and both the ones she was just talking about are those two. So that would be the context of the sentence. So it is possible that she was talking about Esau and Yaakov. Why would she say that?
But only two people's lives are in danger. One is old age, and the other is murder.
Well, not necessarily.
Esau's life isn't in danger at this point.
Well, not necessarily. Think of it this way. If they get in a fight, then it's possible that they could. I mean, it's possible that you could have more than one death. I mean, that's always a possibility. Someone picks up. I mean, it doesn't take much to pick up a knife and have it, for Yaakov to have battle out Esau, and then they both mortally wound each other. I mean, that's it's
It happened
not,
all the time.
it's not out of the realm of possibility when it comes to a fight to the death, you know. So, I mean, that's just a possibility. It seems like the context is talking about, but, you know, I would still hold out the possibility that she's talking about, you know, Yitzchak. It's just the verse 45, just the way she talks about it, and then immediately says that. It just strikes me a little odd. But
I wonder how much time it took for Yaakov to actually leave, though. After the initial blessing that he received. I wonder how much time before he actually packed his bags and went to Bethuel and Laban, her brother.
I couldn't imagine, you know, this is just conjecture, but I couldn't imagine it'd be more than a few days. Just because, you know,
Well, the thing is
it seems like it's kind of urgent.
did Yaakov miss mourning his father? I would thought he might have stuck around for that too.
Yeah, I think.
So it's just
I don't-
one of those things, you know?
I don't know that he did stick around for it, because the whole point, she's wanting him to go quickly so that he wouldn't lose, you know,
Sure.
both in the same day. So I think the point was, you need to get out of here now, before, you know, before someone else dies. And obviously, in either case, no one had died. Yeah, you know, Yitzchak hadn't died at that point, yeah, or if it was Esau that she was concerned about, in addition to Yaakov, obviously he hadn't died. So I don't know. It just seems like with that statement, there's a urgency to get him out of there. So I don't know. I think it's a possibility. It's a good possibility that he didn't been able to stay around to mourn his father, which would have been horrible. That would add to the list of consequences, you know, that he would have to endure.
I don't remember, maybe I'm just making it up in my head, but it seems like, did Yaakov come back and mourn his father's death later?
He may have done it later. Let's see.
I don't think that's in scripture though, is it?
Well, he may have, whether it was right at the time
trying
of
to think about it.
right at the time of the death or afterwards. That's a good question. Let's see here.
For some reason,
I'll find a reference here for the death of. I'll have to find out when Yitzchak died. Let's see here.
I mean, when he comes back. I don't remember reading that, but for some reason it's
I think it's in chapter 35. Let's see. There are quite a few chapters to go by. Now let's see, maybe not. Let's see. Maybe that's not it. Let's see here. It's chapter 35, it's just at the end of the chapter.
35?
Yeah, so we have,
that's where he dies.
we see that earlier on in verse 19, Rachel dies. So this is after.
Yeah, 35:29.
This is after he leaves Lavan.
Yeah, because they both buried him in 35:29.
Yeah. He appeared to you when you fled Esau, your brother.
I remember reading
So
that.
he did grieve his death, because he was there. So he came back before he got back.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'm just trying to see where did he.
I thought he did. I thought it was when he came back. I just couldn't make the connection. I forgot that Yitzchak died after he came back.
Yeah. So it's. I'm trying to remember, find what chapter he left Lavan. Let's see here. Okay, that's chapter 31. Yaakov has taken away everything that your father once had. It's from what used to belong to your father. He has gone so much.
Well, because he's coming back with a whole lot of stuff, and supposedly he sees Esau coming
Right,
towards
and he
him,
sends him a whole bunch of stuff, sends him a whole bunch of stuff.
splits the people all.
Right, stays in the back finally.
So chapter 31 is when Yaakov finally splits Lavan, takes off. So
Takes off.
So you have chapter 32 occur where we have the meeting with Esau, and now it's calling it the country of Edom. Esau is named as a country after himself now at this point.
Yaakov in a lot of ways reminds me of a used car salesman.
And then we have chapter 33, where we see that finally that the meeting takes place before they realize that he's coming in chapter 32. Chapter 33, they meet. Chapter 34, we see some other issues take place. And chapter 35 is where, at the very end of the chapter, finally after all that happens, in verse 29, verse 28 says, well, maybe start in verse 27. It says, Yaakov came home to his father Yitzchak at Mamre, near Kiryat Arba, also known as Hebron, where Abraham and Yitzchak had lived as foreigners. Chapter 35, verse 27, back there. So this was like, I think, close over 20 years after he left.
Yeah. Yitzchak lived a lot longer than
Yeah, a lot longer.
Longer than Esau probably.
Yeah. So chapter 35, well, and his wife,
Right.
Yitzchak's wife.
Yeah.
So chapter 35, verse 28 says Yitzchak lived to be 180 years old.
So he's
And then
expected
verse-
to die around 160.
And then verse 29, he says that he breathed his last, died of his gathered his people, an old man, full of years, as his sons Esau and Yaakov buried him.
I thought, I knew something was sparking in my memory. I was like, I'm pretty sure Yaakov mourned his death after he came back.
Yeah. So, I briefly forgot about that too. So, he didn't have to mourn him while he was gone, while he was, away. He had plenty of time, apparently. Got to work things out.
And he didn't die that week.
Yeah. Yep. Not.
So if he would have stuck around, there would have been a long wait for Esau's anger to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
watching the stuff that Yaakov does early in his life, the whole issue with the bow suit, the whole issue with of course the mom was involved, I know, but the whole issue with the birthright.
The bowl soup, that's.
Well, no, I understand, but the whole issue with
that's
with
your problem.
Laban and the way he was breeding the animals and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying what he was doing was technically bad, but like I said, he reminds me a lot of a used car salesman. They do what they can to get the benefit of what they can, and basically use semantics to get around everything.
I think the only place he went wrong, and I think he learned his lesson from that, was, and he even knew, like I mentioned this last week,
Well, because he was lying to his father.
he knew what he was doing wasn't right, so he had the moral wherewithal to realize what he was doing is wrong.
Right.
He wasn't blind to it. He even tried to resist his mother and said, "Mom, if I do this, this is not right. I'm going to bring a curse on myself," because he knew it was wrong. And his mom's just like, "Just do it. I'll take the curse on myself."
It makes me wonder if that's not why he died early.
Yeah, I don't know. It could be.
Because usually wives outlive their husbands.
But everything else, he was, as far as I'm concerned, he was on the up and up. He was just wise. He was just wise. The blessing had already been prophesied, to him, and God delivered him, Esau into his hands. And all he said was, "Hey, sell me your birthright, because it's pretty much mine anyways. I bet I'll, let's do this fair and square, so it's, everybody recognizes it, So, I think overall, his conduct was righteous. But he did have to, it's especially the covenant bearers that get disciplined the most. I mean, look at Moshe. Pretty good guy overall.
Yeah.
But he kind of
Well,
goes.
he's a murderer, but
He was defending.
he was defending.
Yeah, that's not murder. So that's.
He was defending a brother.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the thing he did was he didn't bring proper glory to God in the situation, and because of that, he didn't kind of go into the promised land. But for the average person, he'd probably get disciplined, but not as much as Moshe would. And so I think the same thing with Yaakov. You think, oh wow, we had to go through all that just because of the one little thing. Well, when you're that person, that's just not a little thing, because it's going to have effects on everybody else around you. It affects a lot more people than just yourself. Well, any other thoughts on our chapter here? Yeah, I encourage everybody, when you get a chance, read about Esau and Edom and prophecy. It'll be interesting.
Oh, yeah. Just one thought, and I know I didn't say this before, but it's kind of just catches on to when Esau comes in and, wait a minute, you're Esau? and then Yitzhak's like, well, then who just gave me that food that I ate all of it up? You know, it's like, who else is living in your tent or lives nearby, and it wasn't your wife, you know?
Well, he had lots of servants. I mean, who knows? I mean, you could have some possibilities, you know. Yeah. And then if he's old and he's not quite thinking right, and he's just like bewildered, and he's like, what?
One of them that says it's Esau, your firstborn.
Yeah, exactly.
Who was it that said that?
Yeah. So he's probably, as it's happening, he's trying to figure that stuff out, and he's probably just talking out loud, and then he probably remembers the little question that he had earlier, and then it's just like, oh, probably put it together. But you know, when you're that old, sometimes you don't think as quick. But it might be like really obvious to us, you know, having that same thought process when you're 100 years old might not be as quick. I hope I don't slow down too much when I get to be 100.
I hope your shoe comes back.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Become 100.
That's my hope. Just fight the good fight until then. Drink lots of coffee. All right. Thank you, Moses Superior.
Father, we thank you for this time of our study and for just your Torah, which is very precious to us, and we thank you that we get the opportunity to read it and to discuss it and study it. We ask that you'll help us to learn more each day as we study it and as we seek your Ruach to reveal all your truth and all the instructions and everything that Yeshua told us as well. Help us to dwell upon all those words. And we just ask that you'll be with each person who is in need of healing and all those who are just feeling down and out for one reason or another. I ask that you'll comfort them and just bring them your shalom. Help us now as we go our separate ways and give us safety as we travel home. It's in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. Well, hopefully nobody else gets sick.
Go ahead, you can.
That's not really good presentation on spelling. I think I'm pretty much fully recovered, but man, it's like, it took a bite out of me, this virus thing. After I started feeling a little better, I still kind of felt just kind of out of it. A little drained.
Well, sometimes our body still needs added time to get the strength back in and
Yeah.
muscles all back and healed. And
Get my whole schedule off. I haven't even done very once this week. It's been kind of like I can feel myself getting bumped by the moment. Bump with each bite I take. Because I'm usually in the gym every day getting some exercise. Now I haven't done anything this week.
Oh, you kind of plug me in. Yeah, here's an example of that when John Paul II visited the synagogue in Rome in 1986. He said, in many ways, we have regarded you, speaking to the rabbi, in many ways we've regarded Judaism as our elder brother.
Who says this?
John Paul II.
I'll say.
Yeah, and it was in reference to the verse in Romans about the older brother serving the younger.
Some of the later Vatican papers were actually kind of retracting a lot of the anti-Semitism that he had and recognize Israel in a lot of important ways.
Well, yeah, no, that's what, but my point is that that was that was actually in reference to Esau and the gospel. He was trying to make, he was actually going back to older teachings of the